Hello and welcome. Today we are continuing our chat about the arguments for the existence of God by looking at 3 additional arguments. And then I'll have important questions for you. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Gigi, and on this channel I share thoughts and ideas on a multitude of topics while I'm on a journey to more wisdom and better critical thinking. This is the Christian Apologetics series, and my goal in it is to share my thoughts to non-believers on why believing in a God, creator of all things, makes perfect sense and is far from a crazy idea or just feelings. If you have missed the previous videos in this series, stop everything and go back. Begin from the beginning, as it's just much better for comprehension. Of course, if you are interested in such a journey, please join me by subscribing and let's do it together. Okay, so the next 3 arguments I will present are different from the first 3 from the previous video, as they are not natural evidence like the first 3, but critical thoughts. I do think they're important to share with you because these arguments still reflect people's journey to belief, especially in the 5th and 6th argument. But first, let's start with the 4th argument. The 4th argument that people use for the belief that God exists is called Pascal's wager. It is not one that I personally find particularly convincing, but since I know many people are brought to believe by it and they decide to live their life accordingly, I included it in here. So what is Pascal's wager? Well, Blaise Pascal brought the idea that there are 4 possible scenarios when it comes to the belief in his existence, in God's existence. He suggests that humans face 2 possibilities. Either God exists or God does not exist. And then 4 scenarios come out of those 2 possibilities. The first scenario would be that if God exists and somebody believes in him, so the person is a theist, then that believer stands to gain eternal happiness and be in the presence of this God eternally. And the promise is great, as we'll see in later episodes. The second scenario would be that if God exists and one does not believe in him, so the person is an atheist, then the non-believer stands to lose eternal happiness and face eternal damnation, as well as miss out on this life's blessings and joy. The third scenario would be that if God does not exist and you believe in him, so you're a theist, then you suffer worldly consequences like rejection, criticism by others, and a whole life sacrificed to a non-existent being, and then you just die. The fourth scenario would be that if God does not exist and you don't believe in him, then you live your life as you please and gain really no good but your own pleasure, but also no bad in the afterlife because there is no God, there is no afterlife. So Pascal argues that when people are considering the potential outcomes, the expected value of believing in God is far greater than the expected value of not believing. And even if the probability of God's existence is uncertain, the potential reward of the belief, right, the eternal happiness, it outweighs the potential loss, like worldly pleasures, if God does not exist. So it's a rational choice. Therefore, Pascal concludes that it is rational to believe in God as the potential benefits just outweighs the potential risks of unbelief. So he clearly suggests that even if one cannot be certain about the existence of God, which of course they can based on the first arguments, set of arguments that I shared. But for this arguments, let's pretend that we cannot be certain. It is still pragmatic to choose belief as the safer option. As somebody explained in a way more just clear manner, or just down to earth manner, the person said, I'd prefer to invest into a 401k, for example, and maybe die before I retire, having, sacrificed a little bit of pleasure to save money, than to have lots of pleasure while I work and save no money, and then have nothing once I do retire. Now, salvation and grace and eternal life have, of course, they're no way comparable to what awaits the children of God. It's much, much bigger, much better than we can possibly imagine, and the implications are so much greater. But you get the idea. So we'll talk about what is the promise here of our God in later episodes. So I wanted to include this argument in the Apologetics series as, again, I think it's just the best outcome type of argument, and folks who go by it still took time to think it through objectively, on what is the safest way to go about God, what is the best outcome they can hope for, and how to get there. Now, the fifth argument is called objective morality. So I think this is the most convincing, the second most convincing argument right after the order and complexity of creation. And objective morality goes like this. Well, maybe let me ask you some very uncomfortable questions. Who can allow me, or I will ask it like this. Is it okay for me to go out today and kill anyone that I don't like? Is it okay for me to cheat on some tests or cheat on my husband? Is it okay for a 50-year-old to be able to date and marry a 5-year-old? Is it okay to take things that somebody worked hard for and give them to another person? Most of us, and I hope all of us, otherwise I have questions for you, but I hope all of us would answer no to those questions. We know those propositions don't make sense. We know they're wrong. Not only just illegal or reprehensible, but wrong. So the objective morality argument stems from the idea that all of us humans and all of us conscious people have a clear idea of what is good or bad, what is right or wrong. Our laws and even constitutions, revolve around conveying fairness, protecting the weak, protecting the innocent, recognizing the value of life. We have even worldwide organizations who try and make sure that no one around the world abuses fundamental rights. But those things we call fundamental rights come from being conscious of good and bad and the value of life. So if you answer no to the questions I asked, where does that standard that you have inside of you come from? Why can't I just get up and kill somebody? Why do I care about children? Why do you care about children? Why or how do we know what we should do? See, if there is some standard that we have, if we recognize good from bad, it must mean that the standard itself come from somewhere. We didn't all, as a nation, sit around a table and decide what is good. The good was just there within us. If objective moral values and duty exist, there must be some sort of foundation or source for them. Without a foundation, it's just hard to explain why certain things are universally right or wrong. Now, some people have, advanced the rebuttal to this argument by saying that the standard we call good is only derived from nature and natural laws and survival and evolution. But The reality is nature and natural laws tell us what is, right? Whereas morality tells us what should be, even when it isn't. So we'll look into the counter arguments later on in the series when I go over the most popular rebuttals to belief and to Christianity. And I will offer commentary and just answers to those counter arguments. For now, I'll just mention that the reality that we all have a feel for what is right or wrong, what is good, what's bad, what's moral, what's immoral, and that this standard is not something we learn later in life, it's within us. If you take a 2-year-old, a 2-year-old's toy randomly and give it to another, they will often tell you, hey, that's not fair. They have a concept of fair. If you violently hit a person in front of a 9-month-old, which don't do that, please, but if you did, their reaction shows they know it's not good, although they haven't gotten morality classes. They don't have any idea of, clearly why, but they just know it's wrong. We have within us, and to believers, the goodness comes from a creator mind whose standard he gave to his children. We have it within us to know good from bad and to seek goodness for a reason that we'll see later on in videos about, Christianity itself and moral values, Christian values, etc. But there's extensive sources on this very argument, as well as excellent YouTube videos even, that I highly encourage you to dig into. As to me, as I said, it's the second most obvious and convincing argument for a God, right after the order and complexity one. Now, the sixth argument is about personal experiences. It relies on individual accounts of encounters or, experiences with the divine, with God. So we live in our own skin, in our own mind, and often enough, although we share some life experiences like family, like work, school, public transit, whatever it may be, we have to recognize that we are limited in what we know about other people's personal lives and past experiences and even present experiences. We are not in their emotions. We don't necessarily experience everything they do. So some people, me included, will tell you that they know all of the rational, scientific, evident, mathematical, and moral evidence for the existence of God, but that the real reason they believe is that they have also experienced, without a doubt, His existence, His presence, His hand in their lives. They can process the other evidence, right? Yet they recognize that there is no way they can deny His existence, nor His power, nor His goodness after they have experienced it, because they would be lying to themselves and lying to others. So, as you may understand, this argument is obviously subjective because it really is personal to each one. But it's important to bring it up because the God of Christians is not just a God that is far, far away that we know nothing about and don't get to relate to. No, He's our God with a will, a plan, a word, a promise, a Savior, and daily providence, daily guidance, daily blessings for our lives. No one will want to preach the good news more than an individual, who has had specific, precise encounters with the divine. Let me tell you this, no one will deny God after they have seen a true miracle, inexplicable with science or reason. Once they lift up their problem to God when it gets resolved. I'll also say this, no one will encourage others to straighten up their lives and give themselves up to Him more than people who have lived truly different lives and then came to God and saw the difference. Why? Well, because you can't convince them. Or should I say, you can't unconvince them. They know what they've seen or heard or felt. They've seen clear presence and intervention of the divine, and there's no going back to just ignoring the divine. We will talk about the apostles and the reliability of the Bible and even the resurrection later on. But this is important to comprehend that sometimes you just cannot deny things that you have seen, even if it costs you your life. So, what can personal experiences look like though? And why should we believe people who say they happen to them? Well, we don't have to believe them. There are lists, of various reasons people believe what they believe, and this is one, right? And experiences can vary and take, multiple forms, like a word, a message, a healing, a miracle, a prayer that is answered in the most specific detail, or a life completely transformed. The truth is, every person has their lived experience, and so do you that is listening, and some that are so vivid that they confirm the existence of God to that person. So I believe all arguments for the existence of God are comprised in one of the 6 arguments I presented. Now, you're free to look into each one or speak with believers around you to better understand how they came to believe. And it's always good to hear people's words and testimonies instead of just a voice on YouTube. All in all, believers think there is no way we can miss the obvious presence of a higher mind, a higher design, a higher being who created all of our world and who holds it all together. So, hearing these arguments, tell me what you think of them. Have you changed your mind after hearing these arguments, or has it had an impact on you? Or to the contrary, are you even more convinced now of what you already thought you believed at the beginning of the series? Share this with, a loved one that might need to hear it. And please do dig deeper in these topics, in this argument, as I promise you will be amazed. As I said before, I could spend hours and hours and days on each specific argument because I'm just that's the type of person I am. I can go on forever, but for the purpose of this channel, I wanted to expose the arguments, the biggest arguments that there are for people coming to belief, and have each one of us, go do their own homework. So again, dig deeper into these arguments. Look at the details, look at the research, look at the testimonies, and I promise you'll be amazed. So I will leave this here for now. Next time we'll talk about Christianity specifically, because see, the existence of a God is one thing, but religion is another. What is religion? What is Christianity? How is it even different? Is it different, or are Christians just people who think they're better than the next religion? All of that very, very soon. See you next time.